Welcome to Shambhavi Spectrum. Today, my guest is here from Delhi, and though she's a well-traveled person, Vino Supraja, a sustainable fashion designer, and her sustainability concepts are so new. I want to share that with my audience. Her brand name is Vino Supraja. Thank you so much, Vino, for being here and for giving this time for me and my audience. Please tell me a little bit more about your journey towards the sustainability from being a fashion designer.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me over. It's my pleasure totally talking to you all. Basically, I am from a small town called Vandavasi near Kanchipuram, and I did my schooling there. And my first bachelor degree was in architecture. So I studied architecture in Chennai, and so I moved to Chennai for that. And once I finished architecture, that is when the 3D boom was happening, where people started making real-time walkthroughs and views of the buildings on computers. So I learned animation and 3D animation after architecture, which led me to the world of media. It opened my door towards media, where I learned what is camera, what is a shot and everything. And then I did a short course in Anna University in electronic media. After which I was working in television and radio for 5 years in Chennai. That is when I had to move to China because of my husband's job. So in China, what would I do in media without knowing the language? So I thought, let me at least study, I didn't want to waste my time there. So when I was researching on what to study, right, Google doesn't work in China. So I found only this, I am talking like about 10 years ago. So there were only two websites that were available in English. One was the website of a business school, and one was a fashion school. So fashion school sounded exciting to me at that point of time. So I went to the fashion school. It was a bachelor's degree. So again, at the age of 32, I did my bachelor's again with all high school passed out children around me. And once I finished my my fashion design there, my final year graduation collection won a couple of international awards, and it walked the ramp in Shanghai Fashion Week. And again, I had to move at that point to Detroit in the US. So the Shanghai Fashion Week collection had mentions on Vogue of China, Elle of China and everything. But when I moved to Detroit, Detroit was just reviving back from, the Great Recession that it faced. It was almost a dead city. I could have seen it in two ways. The one way was to see it as like no scope, no opportunities, nothing. If I had moved to LA or New York, that would have been the place where I should have been. But there is another perspective which goes like, if it was LA or New York, there are already oceans of fashion designers there. I would have been lost. And this is a city which is trying to revive back to its self. So if I am there, if there is nothing happening in the fashion scene, I'll be the one who will be doing it, right? So I'll be noticed. So that's how I convinced myself.
It is big fish in a small pond, right? After all the accolades that you've got. Please continue.
So I started my small home studio at home, and I had one-on-one clients. I started making small collections and putting them up on the runways in Detroit, in and around Detroit in Michigan. US is more open and more approachable. People try to lift each other up because it's a country of immigrants, so they know how it is to start from scratch. They help each other. So it kind of spread the word of mouth, and I started getting more clients, and my collections walked on Brooklyn Fashion Week and New York Fashion Week, and all the good things happened. That is when I had to move to Dubai. But when I moved to Dubai, I realized that Dubai is a different ballgame, because if you are going to be a couture designer in Dubai, you should be big already, or at least you should post that you're big. Only then you will be seen as a luxury designer. This is not really a place for humble beginnings, and approaching people was very difficult. because you had to have a PR firm working for you. They will approach people and then they will get back to you via the PR agency, which was all new to me because in the US I could write to anyone on Instagram and I got replies.
I was going to ask you those questions about, how did you manage and you were alone, but please continue your journey. We'll go back to that a little later. Yeah, just continue, please.
In Dubai, it was very difficult. The first 1.5 years, I was really like, I didn't know what to do. It was very difficult to figure out what to do in that place. So, and I didn't want to invest much also because, if you see the design of my life so far, I keep moving every 3 years. What's the point in, investing some money on a physical store in a country which I know that I'll be leaving soon in another few years, right? And also Dubai, the cost of living is very expensive. So the cost of running a business is also very expensive. There is no point in, renting out a place and then knowing nobody there. So then, whenever when I come across a crossroad in my life, I choose the college road. So the first time there was a crossroad when I moved to China. Right. Then again when I moved to Dubai, I didn't know what to do. So I thought like let me do a short course again in fashion marketing. So I went to SMOD and I did a certification in fashion marketing. And that is when I had a teacher who spoke to me about sustainable fashion. So, and I was already in a dilemma that, I have to find a business model that will work for me because I can't keep opening my business in a new place and then shutting up every time I move from that country. There has to be something sustainable in terms of business also, right? So when I was kind of thinking about all these in my mind, the teacher also came to me and said, anyway, you are thinking about starting something and you should go on the sustainable way. And he showed me some movies and all. So really, I felt very guilty that I am part of an industry which is causing so much harm. And I was feeling very ashamed that I was very much carried away by the glamour and the glitz of the red carpets, runways, and I never thought what we are doing to the earth, right? It took a teacher to come and tell me that, you have to think about all these things. Also, I thought, so I have to come up with a business model and I keep moving. But the mistake I did earlier was if I had opened a sustainable business in every city I moved, now I would have had my business in 4 different countries. Right? Instead of closing it down. So then I thought I also have connections in India. I am an Indian. I have connections in India. So I have all the liberty to go to my hometown and source fabrics and all sustainable materials. And the online platform is big now. Why not make use of it? So I came up with this online sustainable fashion brand. And it is still operating in Dubai. I moved to Delhi. Now I am working on launching the brand in India. God knows where I will be going next. Even if I go wherever, the business in India will keep running. The business in Dubai will keep running. So that's the plan as of now, and that's where I am in my life so far.
That's so great, and the sustainability is the denominator throughout. Now, because I have a lot of audience who are in marketing and management and young students, young budding entrepreneurs. So I'm hoping that your journey will inspire them first to start with, that they don't really need to be only in one place. Like you've given an idea now that everywhere where you do, you can actually. And of course, technology has played a great role in this also for us, that, communication is so much easier. So tell me a little bit about how did you manage, like you said, of course, Instagram, you would approach people in the US and people respond back to it. What did you do in China, which was same or different in US? And what did you do? What are the common points in all this journey? And what was the point of difference? What are the parity and differences?
I'll tell you what, this universe has taught me something. You will get few things only when you seek for them. You should never shy away from asking for things. But I used to be a very shy person back in Chennai when I used to live there. Even if I am in a hospital or in a hotel lobby, I felt very shy to go and talk to the receptionist and ask for something. But but necessity, when it happens, that for the sake of survival, you need to ask, right? For example, going in China and asking for a toilet. You need to ask, otherwise how would you know? It's all written in Chinese, right? So it's the same. I mean, you have to seek, and especially when I first joined fashion, though I had all high school children around me, they all were aspiring to become a fashion designer from their childhood. I was not like them. I had no connections. I didn't even dream in my life that I will end up in a fashion school. So during my first ever day in college, they all had a discussion on the current spring summer collection of Chanel and how good it was and how bad it was. I didn't even know that there was a brand called Chanel. I didn't even know that it's a brand. And I was like, what is spring summer and what are they talking about? So I always say, there is this technique which will always help everyone in life, which is called Saranagati technique. If you don't know things, first accept that you don't know, and whoever can give you the answer, go tell them that you don't know. Everybody is happy to help, but you cannot pose to them that as if you know, and then you cannot carry a ego that I know everything. No, 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 that won't work. You just have to go and tell them, I am here, I know nothing. I told my teacher, I know nothing about fashion. I am from a small town. I have not even heard the names you were talking about today. So please help me. They were happy to help. They help me till date. I am in touch with all of my teachers, and whenever there is a doubt, I write to them and they respond back to me because they know, and also the attitude that you carry is matter. The right attitude to learn, the right attitude to carry out something and be honest and seek for help. So I think these are all the traits that will take you a long way. I didn't have all these in the beginning, but life has taught me in a very hard way, because it has put me in several waters which were very new to me. I had to find answers, otherwise I'll end up becoming a housewife. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but for a person with some energy like me, right, I will not enjoy it. I will bury myself in self-pity and then I will go doomed. So I had to save myself from becoming that. I had to save myself from depression. I had to put myself into some task which saves me from becoming someone else, right? So in China, everywhere in the world, people are happy to help. It's just that you have to go and ask them with the right attitude. And whenever there is an opportunity, I love this saying, first shake your head like this, figure out later how to get it done. First, just grab everything comes your way, and then things will fall in place. Nobody is an expert when they are born, right? We didn't know how to walk. Now we run, right? How many times we fell in between. So it's okay. So yeah, so I think that's very common in this world. The world is a beautiful place with nice people. We have to be nice to them as well. That's the whole point.
I think you've conveyed a great message that the learning attitude needs to be there, and seeking mentors and benefiting from them, appreciating that's a lot, whether it was the teachers or whether it was your colleagues. I think you've brought out something very important, which as people go higher up and become entrepreneurs, they probably don't have time so much to look into it, or they are so worried somebody will take their idea. It is a very lonely life for an entrepreneur. So sharing ideas, asking people is always, I think, something which sounds so much more credible when it comes from a person like you who's been there and been moving and traveling so much. So now when we say sustainable, we know Deepak is a sustainable brand. Sorry, Vinod Supraja. I got Deepak in between, but it's okay. He's equally a part of Vinod Supraja is a sustainable brand. Let me start with a little bit of a branding question. How or why did you choose your own name to be the brand name?
Okay, see, the point was before I started my sustainable line, I had a lot of, this was my thought when I named my brand my own name. I had a lot of feathers on my cap already. Like someone who has won 2 international awards, and someone who has gone on Shanghai Fashion Week, Brooklyn Fashion Week, New York Fashion, and all those stuff. So when I have the brand name as something else, right, all these goes away.
Yes.
I have to bag new ones, tagging it with my new brand name, and then these things will remain only attached to my name. Right. One thing. And one more thing is, see, in terms of design, the brand is more, the USP of the brand is textile design. I do my textile and then I make garments out of it. So all the prints that you see, they all have a story behind, and they all have deep inspiration. And naturally, as an architect, I get inspired. It comes from my personality, you know. I get inspired from art, architecture, history, travel, literature, and other things. So this is what I am, and this is what I'm expressing in my garments, and that is what I am selling to you as well. So the garments that I sell and me as a person are not very different. It is just my alter ego that you are wearing. So I thought naming it in my own name makes more sense, because I couldn't define me in another word and put it there. I don't know how to define myself in one single word. So I said, okay, let me be. This is it. This is me. This is all I have done, and this is my work. If you like it, take it.
That is great, actually, what you said, because everyone, when they create other brands, they have to create their own personal branding also. So you have just combined the efforts, so you're not taking so much time to do both of these separately. Can I ask you, what are the marketing techniques, or what all do you do for marketing your brand as such, apart from what the whatever fashion shows that you've taken part in and all that? Apart from that, what do you do? And I know even in Dubai you won. You didn't mention that, but even in Dubai you won a couple of awards. I know that. So, and I would love to have a link to those so that I can add that into the channel in the description. Please do tell me about how do you do marketing. So when you get up in the morning, do you think, where are my customers going to come from? What should I do? Do you think about these things? What do you do about it?
See, in fashion, there are two different ways of doing marketing, okay? And that depends on what kind of a brand you are. For example, if you are a couture brand, like Chanel or Elisab or Christian Dior, these are all couture brands. For them, putting a garment on the runway matters, because that improves the image of the brand. And if you see their runways, the garments will not be super wearable. You can see crazy garments out there. It is just to grab attention of the press. So when your garments are crazy, you will be featured on Vogue, and without even paying them. You will be featured. You will get the print space. You will get the web space, right? And seeing that, if you are featured on Vogue, the high profile clients will come to you and they will ask you to make garments for themselves, which will be wearable according to their wish, and they will make garments for them. So this is for couture brands, high-end brands. But when you become a premium brand or mass market brand, going to these runways is a great expense, because you have to pay for the production house, you have to pay for the PR, you have to bring your own audience. And in the couture runways, the audience are going to be all high profile people. If you see, there will be princesses, and there will be big authors and artists and cinema actors and people like them. But when it is a runway of a ready to wear brand, the audience will be buyers. Buyers are not customers, not us who are going and buying the garments. Buyers are the people who buy garments for the departmental stores. So the buyers will come, they will have a catalog with every look that is walking, and they will have like sizes, extra small, small, medium, large, and how many pieces you want and everything. They will mark. The next day they will come and they'll give you the list. So this piece in extra small, I need 5, large, I need 10, and you will have to manufacture and give it to them. So you have to be very clear on where you are as a brand and which segment you are catering to and where you want to put your money in. For me right now, I have even turned down Paris Fashion Week opportunity, because I think at this stage of my business, doing that, in that money that I'll be spending on Paris Fashion Week, I can make a new collection. So I have some in my kitty, and I need to be really careful on where I am putting that, right? And so as of now, my focus is to get in more buyers, getting into the wholesale arena, and directly interacting with the customers, and also being a sustainable brand, because sustainable fashion is expensive, because we are producing slow fashion, because we are producing smaller quantities, automatically the prices go up, which makes us premium. We cannot come under the mass market price band, right? In that case, we have to be very careful about where we are selling. The point of sales is very important. You cannot sell in Amazon and say sale, 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 50% off, 20. No, you still have to have that premium imagery, because people should be convinced to come and pay you what they are paying and buying it. They have to be proud about wearing your brand, owning your brand, though you are not like on the top of the pyramid. But I would say, so what I personally do for marketing is I cannot really give loads of offers and make them. I cannot be a sales driven brand, because all we are talking about is slow fashion. We are saying don't buy too much because it's on sale, don't buy a lot and put it on landfill. These are the philosophy that we are trying to communicate, right? So I would say it's a very indirect kind of marketing that I am doing. I am not selling my garments. I am trying to sell my philosophy. I'm trying to sell my idea of sustainable fashion. So this is it. This all are happening around us, and I am like this art, history, architecture, sustainability, and all those things. This is all in front of you in a platter, and this is actually a very unique mix to tap down exactly, especially on the social media. It's not easy to get that imagery that you are a sustainable brand, but yet you are fun, yet you are colorful, and yet you are into art and all these things, right? But because I am what the brand is, it comes naturally to me. So whatever I post, it makes sense. It still comes into the family, and I handle my social media myself. I tried giving it away, but then it was going away from Vino. So I said, no, it's okay. I will handle it myself. So I do have digital marketing. I do my SEOs, and I do my place my Facebook ads myself. I do my Instagram ads by myself, and my discounts are like, as a policy, that my discounts won't be more than 10% at any point. That's all I can give, because if I'm going to go higher than that, then I have to crush my worker. I have to pay him less, because I cannot compromise on the profit, right? And also we indulge in a lot of I address a lot of college children, and I address a lot of communities. So for me, if you ask me, I always say I don't also get involved with what influences. Sorry. So because I don't believe in influencer marketing, it will convert. Okay.
I think you're an influencer. Why would you need an additional? Because you've traveled your journey. You have actually gone through those phases, no? So you yourself are the person who should be influencing people, and which is what you're doing. So I understand that nobody else can understand you better than what you have, particularly in your case. And then, of course, all your radio stint and your electronic media, all that, probably that education and all that has added towards the personality that you are. So who else can speak your message better than you yourself? And which is what everybody is trying to do now. Other people who don't have any experience are trying to learn how to tell their own stories. So I think influencer marketing is, you are the influencer. Finished.
You know what I say? I say that my viewers are my influencers. My tailors are my influencers. I will show their face. Yes. And I always say Mahatma Gandhi is my brand ambassador, because he is one of the oldest fashion warrior. He was against mass production back then, even before independence. He wore khadi and showed the world that this is what it is, right? Yes. So let him be my brand ambassador. Let my viewers and let my tailors be my influencers. If you are attracted by them, please buy my products. Because influencer marketing, you know what happens? You strike a deal with them. They don't even get what you're talking about. Meaning they don't align with you. You know, they don't align with you. Their personality and your garments may not align. There are several factors which you have to see, and most of the times the number of followers and the engagement, they don't actually give you the right idea of whether your garments will work with them and whether you will get conversions. So I find influencer marketing little non-aligning with my business. So I don't do it. But yes, social media, of course, I do it. I am trying to improve my story strategy now, learning that aspect. And then I speak. I mean,
yeah, I know you have a website. Yeah, you said you speak in various forums. I know you have a website. I'll come to your website in just a bit. But do you do any newsletters and all?
yes, I do
You do
Yes,
newsletters.
yeah, I do
Okay.
newsletters, and I have my own blog posts
Blog.
that
I was
helps
going to
on,
ask you that. Yes.
yeah,
You do blogs? And
yeah,
how often do you think one should actually post for it to have an impact? Of course, now you've been in this field and you're well known, I'm sure people, but let's say a newbie like me who doesn't know anything about and they want to see, then how often do you blog for it to have enough impact?
I would say at least once a month.
Okay.
At least once a month, and newsletters at least twice a month. Keep reminding them that you are there, and in like these are the things that will remind the brand to the customers, right? So
Top
on
of the
Instagram,
mind.
yeah, and on Instagram, posts are not very looked up these days. So that I have reduced. Actually, I used to have 3 posts per week, but now I have made it like 2 posts because that's more than enough. Only if I put it on stories and say, hey, go see, I have posted about something, people come, because people only started noticing the stories more. So at least 3 to 4 stories a day, but segregate it throughout the day, 10 a.m., 12 a.m., 3 a.m., and night 9 a.m. So stagger it for the whole day. And you know, actually, there are some sustainable fashion platforms in UAE. So I am part of them. They hold multi brands, like they hold several brands. So I am part of them. I sell there as well. Yeah,
Can I ask you? Yeah, can I ask you a question? You said 3 to 4 stories per day on Instagram. Where does the content for this come from? You know?
So I have made an algorithm for myself. Okay. So what am I is one part. What am I is I like art, and then okay, let me show you. That will be, let me read out so I don't miss out on anything. Okay.
Thank you.
So the purpose of what you're, either it is for post or for stories, for anything. The purpose is discovery, which is you'll be saying something about your brand. Okay. And then engagement, asking a question or running a poll, or giving that sliders, all the new stickers that Instagram has. So for engagement. And then conversion, buying induced. There you can shout like buy, now you buy, did you see this collection, buy link, swipe up for link, and all those things. And then user generated, when somebody wears your garment and sends you a picture, or when you get a Google review, or things like that. And art integrated, because I work on colors and art and everything, something to do with art. Apart from this, all the work that I do, if I am speaking to someone today, I will post a screenshot, or if I am going somewhere today, seeing something interesting. So all these things, okay. And the tools for all this, right? If it is a post, if it's that, it can be images, which will be a static image, or a carousel, or a collage, same image with several images, or it can be a crop of a bigger image. And videos, you can create GIFs, you can create reels, you can create IGTV videos, right? And for texts, it can say your brand philosophy, vision and mission of your brand. It can be a quote, or it can be a review, or it can be anything. And art can be some inspiration. It can be your prints, the story behind your prints. It can be a collage of several things, something that you are trying today on your iPad on Procreate. So these are like purpose and tools, right? This can be anything. For example, the discovery about your brand can be a GIF, can be an art, can be a video, and can be an image, right?
Right.
So
right.
I kind of cycle this.
Moving that. Okay. Yeah. So
yeah, I wanted to have a framework. Otherwise, it's very difficult to come up with something or the other every single day, right? So this kind of helps me. This like how you do match the following. Right? This and this may be something we should post. This and this may be something we should post. But it takes minimum 1 hour of my day to create stuff for my stories alone. It really takes. You cannot just, even stories need to have some quality, no?
Right.
So it really needs time to, but these are all brand building, so you can't really avoid doing all these. And also in terms of your Instagram feed, your feed it's like a mood board. your feed will tell you what your brand is, right? If you are a minimal brand, the feed will be very minimal. If you are a loud brand, your feed will be loud. If you are a black and white brand, then your feed will be black and white and gray, the same. And if you're selling a beard oil, it will have for men, it will have a certain feel. If you are selling oil for children, baby oil, both are oil, right? But this will have a different feel. So in terms of the posts of Instagram, I work like a grid every month in the beginning, and then I rearrange and see how it works, whether it works with my previous at least 2 months, whether it goes well when they swipe. And aesthetic, these are all with your aesthetic taste and your own ideas, So this is how I work on my social media. But I tell you, it's very difficult.
And you said you're not finding anybody suitable to help you out also, who can understand what is your need. And so tell me, one of the things which I wanted, why I said I'll talk about your website a bit later. So I've gone through your website a couple of times, and there is one particular thing which always fascinated me. I think you have some offer for people if they wear something for so many times. Can you tell us more about that, How did you come about the idea, first of all, and why? How did you choose to do that offer?
See, I heard about this. It's not my own invention or something. I heard about this in a TED Talk that this was a very interesting thumb rule to follow. It's called the 30 times rule. So don't buy anything unless you're sure that you will be wearing the garment for 30 times minimum. And don't throw away something before wearing it at least for 30 times, which I thought was a very reasonable, doable thumb rule to have. Anybody can do it. 30 times is not more, right? And so I thought to encourage this, if you don't want my garment that you bought from me after you wear it for 30 times, please give it back. Don't throw it on landfill. I will do something with it. I will upcycle it, or I will recycle it, or I will donate it. I will do something with it. But please don't throw away. And then this 30 times was again a very tricky thing, because you never know. Maybe they wore it only once and they are returning it. So we had also this time limit of 18 months. Okay. 30 times or 18 months. And in 18 months, I expect you to wear it for 30 times. That is my own expectation, but I have set it as a rule. So if it's already 18 months, please give it back to me. I'll take it back. Okay. And you'll get a discount on your next purchase. So that's the deal.
So has it attracted customers, or have people come back to you like this?
It's not the 18 months yet. So I'm waiting.
Okay. I also think that you may not find people, this is my personal thought, you may not find people coming back to you because in the first place, they have chosen your brand as a sustainable brand. Okay. And they've chosen it in a special way because of the way that you have made it, and plus it is customized to them. Then why would they actually want to give it away?
Actually, you know what, Sambhavi? The reality is, most of the people who come to me, they don't come to me because we are a sustainable brand. They like the pictures that we are posting. We are still living in a very capitalistic world. People love to spend money and they want to buy stuff. So they like the ad that I'm pasting on Instagram or Facebook. So they just, as ever, they just buy it impulsively. And there are very little people who look for a sustainable brand, who follow the brand for what it stands for, and then come and buy it from you. So, but my point is, okay, you like the garment, you come and bought it, right? Now you will be under my radar. I will keep injecting my sustainable philosophy into you so that some kind of change will happen at some point.
Right. So the customer is converted then to a more like a loyal, but loyalty not only to you, but to sustainability. So you have a bigger vision and a bigger message which you want to actually convey. So we know I always use you as an example in my classes and say that if you're looking for sustainable brands, I remember you mentioning this, that if you're looking for sustainable brands or sustainable things, you should go in the shop and ask where is your sustainability thing. And if they don't have, when they realize enough people are asking, they will kind of increase their portfolio or repertoire, whatever. And you're so right, because some of these fashion brands out here, which mid level, I'm not talking about the high level, who didn't have anything or who had just about 4 garments. Now, even on their online, they say this is sustainable, it's 100% cotton, purchased from, so they have started using that. And I think for people who are looking for that, it definitely is trigger. So this is a message which I always like to share with my students, that if you're searching for something, like you said, if you seek, you will get. Is there something else along in your journey which you would have liked to do it different than what you have done now? Is there anything which you think you would have worked a different way?
No, I actually did what I could do at that point in time, and it led me. I kind of take my life as it comes. I don't really plan much because I can't plan.
Yeah, you need.
Introverted with my husband, my son, and the whole family and everything. So I can't really plan. But all I did was, whenever there was an opportunity, I asked. As I said, there was seeking, and whenever there was an opportunity, though I was just a fashion passed out from, from a college or just a graduate or anything, I just said I will do it. Though I didn't have any tailors working with me, though I didn't have any resources in the US, until New York Fashion Week, I was the one who was cutting, sewing, everything. I didn't have anybody working for me. Only after starting this brand, I started outsourcing my stitching part. Otherwise, I was the one who was doing it. So it's okay. I made mistakes, but I'm happy about it. Without making mistakes, I wouldn't have been who I am today, right?
Right. That is, of course, we learn. Like you said, we learn from where we fall. We have to get up and walk again. Binu, tell me something. Do you have other people in your team now, or you are handling it yourself, doing the outsourcing part?
I have some freelancers. So I have a content writer. She's from UK. So she writes my blogs. I give her the topic, and then she will come back with her first draft, and we go back and forth, and then she does that part. And my production unit, the garment production unit, is in Erode, which is a team, and there is an organization called 5P Venture. They are the ones who are managing the weavers and the tailors. They belong to a very ancient weaving village called Chennimalai. They have been weaving for many generations now. So the 5P Ventures have provided them a beautiful, eco-friendly place to work. I just love going there because it is so close to nature, lots of light coming in, very airy. Because at the other places, I've been to many weaving places. It's all very cramped inside the house,
Yeah, but this right, I know.
And the weavers are very happy people. The tailors are it's a great team to work with. It's more like a family. I know them all by name, and they know me. They always look forward for my visit, asking "Yeppa varinga, madam" and all. So this is my production part. And social media, as I told you, I tried hiring 3 different people. It didn't work. I thought no, because this is like the face of the brand, no?
Yes.
So yes. I have to have the right person to do it. So as of now, I am the right person. So I'm doing it myself. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We know you've spent so much time with me. Just the last thing, would you like to pass a message to the young students or young entrepreneurs, people who are starting out on their journey now? Would you like to give a message to them?
Yes, for all the entrepreneurs out there. It is not easy to be an entrepreneur because there is no boss. Nobody will question you. Nobody will set tasks for you. There is no benchmarking. If you want to wake up today at 11 o'clock and not do any work, you can do. If you want to wake up today at 6 o'clock and sit and work every single day from 8, you can do. And if, say, for example, I want to release a collection by the 4th quarter of this year, okay? But nobody is going to question me, even if I'm going to release it the following year, right? There is no compulsion to do anything, but you need to have the constant self-motivation, the push, the inner fire from yourself to do something. Otherwise, being an entrepreneur will not work. You have to have that constant push. And nobody will really support you when you start. Even your family, in many families, they don't support because they say go to some work and get some good salary. Why do you want to start some business? Business is risky according to the world. right? So
Right.
you have to stand for your own ideas, virtues, and you have to be self-motivated. You need to have your own planners, your own boxes to check, your own drive to go and find out things. It's a big responsibility, so don't give up that easily. That's my message.
Thank you so much for that, Vinu. I'll share your links and website and everything in the description. So please do share that with me. And I look forward to having another chat with you, and when maybe in your new place or maybe with your new collection. Thank you so much for all the time, and take care and be safe.
Lovely talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.